So, what's going on guys, Kades here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the top 3 new DPS builds in New World Season 3. So there is a new meta, and that's why for each and every single build I will explain what attributes, weapon masteries and even weapon and gear perks you want to have. Then what gems and specific gear you want to use to get out your stats as much damage as possible. Then as well I will show you the best gameplay of me using different weapon combinations, so you would know which abilities you want to use first on your enemies and much more. So if all this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then taking a closer look at the first weapon, which is the greataxe and warhammer, and these are the attributes you want to have. So no matter from which level you start using this build, you first of all want to get your strength to 200, and then get 100 points in constitution, and then continue putting everything else in strength. And then around level 60 and 625 item score gear, you should have around 300 strength and 200 constitution. And as you can see, the yellow bar color indicates the attributes that you get from level 60, then the blue color indicates the attributes that you get from gear, and then the purple color indicates the attributes that you get from your food. And then lastly, for your gear, you want to go with the medium category, which means using heavy helmet, heavy chest armor, medium gloves, light pants and medium boots. So then taking a closer look at the first weapon, which is the greataxe, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Maelstrom, and then get these 3 perks. Then now get the second ability called the Gravity Well, and then get these 2 perks. Then from here let's move over to the other side and select this 1 perk, and then the last final ability called the Charge, and then get these 3 perks, and that's it. Now from this point and onwards you're free to pick and choose which perks you want to unlock next. So then moving over to the second weapon, which is the Warhammer, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock this perk and then these 2 abilities called the Shockwave and then Path of Destiny, and then get these 4 perks. Then now let's move over to the other side and get these 2 perks, and then the last and final ability called the Wrecking Ball, and then get these 2 perks, and that's it. Now again from this point and onwards you can unlock all the other perks in whatever order you like. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I will show you the best way to play this build. And for the first weapon we have the greataxe, and your first Q spell is called the Maelstrom, which will perform a fast spinning attack that pulls all targets in 2.5 meter range and does bunch of AoE damage. Then the second ability is called the Gravity Well, which will swing your axe and create this electric storm in which your enemies will be stunned, slowed and will take bunch of damage. And then lastly we have the Charge, which is a simple mobility spell that will make your character dash for 10 meters while at the end doing 120% of your weapon's damage. And then for the second weapon we have the Warhammer, and your Q spell is called the Shockwave, which will slam your hammer into the ground, causing a 3-meter earthquake that deals damage and staggers and roots your enemies for 2 seconds. Then the second skill is called the Path of Destiny, which will create this powerful ground strike that does a lot of damage in this AoE range. And then lastly we have the Wrecking Ball, which will strike the ground with your warhammer, dealing damage and at the same time knocking down your enemies. So then let's move over to the rotation, and no matter if you're farming mobs in PvE or doing PvP, the same principle and rules apply. So at the beginning of the fight we want to start with the greataxe and use the Gravity Well, and then dash into the enemy with the Charge ability. Then now the enemy will probably try to run, so use the Maelstrom and pull him back. Then now let's switch to the Warhammer and use the Shockwave and then the Wrecking Ball. And then lastly finish off your enemy with the Path of Destiny, and that's about it. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This greataxe and warhammer weapon combination is very high damage melee bruiser build that will give you high tankiness and high DPS potential. So then last but not the least, this is what you want to be using: greataxe, hammer and chest armor wise, and perks are as important as gems. Then these are the best gloves, boots, leg armor and helmet. And then lastly, these are the top 3 best jewelry that you want to get. If I went too fast, you'll feel free to pause the video and copy these exact same gems and perks. But of course, this build will work fine with any gear as long as you're using the same attribute and weapon setup that I showed. And then one more thing, this is how your item should look like. So on your bar you want to use the health and regen potions. Then get the cleansing potion or any other potion depending on what activity you are doing. And then lastly use the carrot cake. And then of course don't forget on your character to equip the heart rune of detonate. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for a super fun melee build that will give you a fun playstyle with high damage, then this is the build for you, so have fun. So then moving over to the second weapon, which is one of the strongest PvP setups in the current meta. And for the weapons, we want to use the greatsword and bow, and these are the attributes you want to have. So first things first, if you start from level 0, you want to get your dexterity to 150. And then start building your constitution, and around level 60 you should have 300 dexterity and 150 constitution. And then lastly, for your gear, you want to go with the light category, which means using one medium chest piece and then the rest light equipment. So then taking a closer look at the first weapon, which is the greatsword, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all, you want to unlock both these two abilities called the crosscut and relentless rush, and then get these 4 perks. Then now let's move over to the other side and unlock the last third ability called the calamity counter, and then get these 3 perks, and that's it. Now from this moment you can unlock all the other perks in whatever order you like. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the bow, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, you want to unlock the first ability called the evade shot, and then get these 3 perks. Then now let's go over to the other side and unlock the last 2 abilities called the penetrating shot and explosive arrow. And then lastly get these 4 perks, and that's it. Now again from this point and onwards, you can spend your points in whatever way you want. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. And for the first weapon, we have the greatsword, and your first Q ability is called the crosscut, which will perform 3 quick slash attacks, that with each attack will do more damage. Then the second skill is called the relentless rush, which will dash through your enemies while spinning and applying a 20% slow for the next 4 seconds. And then lastly we have the calamity counter, which will give you a block for 2 seconds, and depending on how many times the enemy continues to attack you, the more counter damage you will be able to do after the 2-second block expires. And then for the second weapon we have the bow, and your first Q spell is called the penetrating shot, which will shoot an arrow that can go through multiple enemies, dealing very high damage. Then the second skill is called the explosive shot, which will fire an arrow that will deal normal damage, but then on the enemy impact, the arrow will explode, dealing plus 130% more additional explosive damage to all targets in 2.5 meter range. And then lastly we have the evade shot, which after using will make our character leap back while using one last arrow, and this is great for dodging enemy attack while doing high damage. Okay, so then let's move over to the rotation. And first of all, you want to keep your distance between you and the enemy as much as possible, and from the range keep on using the normal bow light attacks. Then when the enemy gets closer and you know that you can land a decent shot, then now use the explosive arrow, then one light attack, and then right after use the penetrating shot. Then now switch to the greatsword and use the crosscut and relentless rush, depending on how close or how many enemies you are fighting. Then from this point the enemy will do damage to you, so now we want to counter him with the calamity counter, and then lastly we switch back to the bow and use the evade shot to leap back, and then we finish off the enemy from distance, and that's it. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This greatsword and bow weapon combination is the current highest damage PvP build in New World, and this build will not only give you very high damage, but as well you will be able to fight in melee to long range, and your speed is insane, so you can kite your enemies in PvP or to run around the monsters in PvE. And then last but not the least, for the greatsword and bow, you want to use the opal gem, and then for all of your gear use the diamond gems. And then lastly on your character you want to equip the heart rune of detonate. And then on top of all this, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build. You can find the link in this video description or just scroll through my channel, and in that guide I will specifically explain how perks work and which ones are the best for your specific gear and weapons and much more. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for the most fun and one of the best DPS PvP builds, then this is the one for you, so enjoy! And then moving over to my last and final build, which is the hammer and blunderbuss, and these are the attributes you want to have. So then no matter from which level you start using this build, you first of all want to get your strength to 100 or even 150, and then start building your constitution. And around level 60 you should have 300 strength and 150 constitution. But if you are a super hardcore player with 600 item score gear, then you're feel free to go with 50 more constitution by using the food and full endgame gear. And then last but not the least, for your armor, you want to go with the medium category, and the best setup is to have heavy helmet, heavy chest armor, medium gloves, light pants and medium boots. So then for the first weapon we have the warhammer, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock this one perk and then the first ability called the shockwave, and then get these 2 perks. Then afterwards get the second ability called the Path of Destiny, and then get these 2 perks. Then from here, let's move over to the other side and unlock both these 2 perks, and then lastly get the last third ability called the Wrecking Ball, and then get these 3 perks, and that's it. Now from this moment, you can spend your points in whatever way you like. So then moving over to the second weapon, which is the blunderbuss, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, you want to unlock both these 2 abilities called the Azot Shrapnel Blast and Class Shot, and then get these 4 perks. Then from here, let's move over to the other side and unlock the last third ability called the Splitting Grenade, and then get these 5 perks, and that's it. Now again, from this point and onwards, you're free to use your points in whatever order you want. So then let's move over to the gameplay, where I'll show you the best way to play this build. So for the first weapon, we have the Warhammer, and the first Q spell is called the Shockwave, and when using the spell it will give us the ability to slam down the hammer and create a smaller earthquake, and all players standing in it will get stunned for 2 seconds. Then for the second ability, we have the R skill called the Path of Destiny, which will create a huge electric wave, and all enemies standing in this path will be taking bunch of damage. And then lastly, we have the F ability called the Wrecking Ball, which when using will strike the ground with your Warhammer, dealing additional damage and flattening your target. So then going over to the second weapon, which is the blunderbuss, and as I already covered this weapon twice, so we will just take a closer look at the last skill, which is called the Class Shot. And this will shoot forward this harpoon, dealing damage, then rooting the enemy in front of you, and then lastly you will automatically get pulled closer to the enemy. Okay, so then let's take a closer look at your best skill rotation that works both for PvP and PvE. So then the way you want to attack an enemy is by first of all using your Warhammer, and then use your Shockwave and then Wrecking Ball, and this will stun and flatten your target. Then from here switch back to the blunderbuss and shoot the Splitting Grenade, then the Class Shot, and then finish off with the Shrapnel Blast. This combo should one-shot the enemy, but if the target just has still a little bit of health, then switch back to the Warhammer and finish him off with your Path of Destiny. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This Warhammer and blunderbuss weapon combination is very good because you can survive for very long, while at the same time being very mobile by using the medium gear, and then as well being able to do massive amounts of close range damage. So then last but not the least, for your Warhammer and blunderbuss for PvP and PvE, you want to use the Opal Gem. And then for all of your gear, get 3 Malachite and 2 Onyx Gems. And then on your character, you want to equip the Heart Rune of Detonate. And then on top of all this, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, in which I will explain in depth which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build. And you can find the link in this video's description or just scroll through my channel. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for the best blunderbuss build that you will be able to use for crazy damage, then this is the one for you, so enjoy! And that's about it. So I really do appreciate everyone for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other good new world builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe, and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day, and I will see you in my next video. So take it easy, peace.